If you have a teenage child with FND or functional neurological disorder and they are reaching for things like a crutch, a brace, a sling every single day, I want you to sit with this question for a second here. Is that device helping your child recover? Or is it quietly working against the very thing their brain needs to do to heal? That is what this video is about today. Welcome. I'm Dr. Lee, a licensed clinical psychologist specializing in pediatric health psychology and the founder of Teen FND Academy, where I help teens with FND and their families understand what is actually happening in the brain and what to do about it. Before we get into the research, I want to make sure we're all on the same page about what an assistive device, including a mobility aid, actually means in the context of FND, because it is broader than what you might be thinking. Most people picture something physical: a wheelchair, a pair of crutches, a sling, a brace, an ankle support, a magnifier. And yes, all of those things count. But an assistive device in FND is really anything that steps in to do what the nervous system needs to be practicing doing on its own. So what that means is it can also be a person. When a parent, for example, carries their teenager's backpack every single day because their arm hurts, when a parent drives their teen to a class that is just a 5-minute walk away because walking feels hard, when a parent, let's say, stops asking their teen to do chores because they are worried about triggering a flare. How about this? When a parent answers for their teen in a doctor's appointment every single time because speaking up feels like too much for their teen. Now, all of these things are called accommodation. And accommodation, even when it comes from love, even when it feels like exactly the right thing to do, can function just like a brace on the nervous system. It tells the brain, hey, you cannot do this. You need help. Stay exactly where you are. Now, let me be clear. I am not saying this to make you feel guilty. If you have been doing any of these things, which is pretty much 1000% of the families that I work with when they come into my program, it is because you love your child and you have been trying to protect them. That makes complete sense. There's nothing wrong with it. And understanding what the brain actually needs is what changes this picture. So let's get into that. So here is an honest starting point. We do not have super large clinical trials specifically studying device reduction in FND, let alone for pediatric populations, okay? We're not that popular just yet, even though FND is widely common and it's just basically everywhere. But in the name of the research, FND is not quite getting that much attention. So what we do have now is, so far, is expert consensus, neuroscience, and what we see clinically, all right? And when these three things are all pointing in the same direction, that is worth paying attention to. The most important source on this is a peer-reviewed consensus paper published in 2015, a little bit over 10 years ago, in the Journal of Neurology, Neurosurgery, and Psychiatry by a group of scientists in this area. And it says that avoiding adaptive equipment, aka assistive devices, where possible, is part of the best practice in FND rehab/recovery. They also recommend against, so like they're basically saying don't use devices like splints and casts, anything that is like immobilizing. And there's also second study, 2023 case report out of Japan by Dr. Amako, further illustrated this in a clinical setting, describing how an ankle support and mobility aid were identified as barriers, quote unquote, to recovery for a patient with FND, and how removing those things was a key goal of the rehab program. Now, this is what the research says. Now, let me explain the neuroscience behind why this is the case. And I talk about it all the time on my channel, but one more time, FND is a miscommunication between the brain and the body caused by a combination of biological, psychological, and social factors. And that means the brain has learned a faulty pattern, not because anything is structurally broken, but because the neural pathways that control movement or any other symptoms have gotten stuck in that wrong loop. So think of it like a road in the brain that keeps taking the same wrong turn. And the more it travels that road, the more automatic that pattern becomes. This is where neuroplasticity comes in a good way. The neuroplasticity is brain's ability to change, to build new pathways, to learn new patterns. And this is literally and genuinely good news because it means the brain can be retrained, especially for pediatric populations where their brain is constantly and rapidly still growing. So their ability to do this neuroplastic thing is much better than you and I, adult. But here is the neuroplasticity required, no matter what the age is. Practice. Repeated, automatic, functional movement. The brain rewires through doing, not through being carried, right? So this is where devices become a real concern if the recovery is the priority. Because neuroplasticity works in both directions. The brain does not just build new pathways, it also makes it strong, whatever it is currently doing. So when a device is consistently doing the work for the nervous system, the brain adapts to that too. So it gets better at needing that device, whatever that device is. The faulty pathway stays worn in. The new one never gets a chance to form. And this is where the concerns are coming into play.
The Family Guy shares a handful of practical strategies to help you get out of this survival mode. And it shows why our structured approach gets such a strong result. Grab it from the description below. It is free.
So let me talk about 3 concerns. Nielsen and colleagues describe FMD, functional movement disorder, which is a type of functional neurological disorder, as an involuntary but learned habitual movement pattern. The device reinforces that pattern rather than interrupting it. So instead of the nervous system practicing this automatic natural movement, it keeps practicing the compensated version, the version built around that device. So every day with the crutch is another day the brain does not practice walking without it. I mean, if you think about it, right? Here's concern number 2. Nielsen's paper also specifically lists deconditioning as a perpetuating factor in FND, and that is also proven by so many other scientists too, including in my practice. When a limb is not being used, muscles weaken, joints stiffen, secondary pain develops. And this is specific to the movement part, but the device that was meant to protect your child can end up creating potential new layer of physical problems sitting on top of the FND itself. The nervous system is now managing more things, not less, which is not great. The third concern is safety behaviors. And this is where I want to bring in what I see clinically in the teenagers I work with. A safety behavior is anything we do to manage the feeling of threat. So any devices very quickly become safety behaviors in FND. Example, the crutch stops being just a physical support and starts being the thing that feels like it stands between your teenager and a really bad day, like emotional crutch. The brace stops being about the ankle and starts being about anxiety. The brain learns this. Without it, I am not safe. And that message, I am not safe, is the opposite of what the nervous system needs to hear in order to move toward recovery. So Nielsen's paper describes illness beliefs and the perception that movement causes damage as key perpetuating factors in FND. Safety behaviors feed exactly that, and they tell the nervous system, hey, movement is dangerous. You need protection. Stay in protection mode, and a nervous system in protection mode cannot really rewire. What I see in families is that this same dynamic plays out with human accommodation too. So when a parent is always there to catch, carry, answer, and excuse, the nervous system unfortunately gets the same message. You cannot do this, you need me, and over time that becomes its own kind of stuck, which is not what you want, because you want your child to get better and then you want to help. So this is what I say, parents are definitely coming from a place of good intention and well-meaning. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the same thing as well-informed. What does this mean practically for you? Don't worry, I have practical advice for you. Number one, if your teen is using a physical device or assistive device, right, start having a conversation with their physical therapist or occupational therapist about a plan to gradually reduce it. Not all at the same time, gradually, carefully, with support, baby steps. Ask specifically, hey, what is our goal for reducing this, and what does this step-by-step look like? Now, if their therapist is not familiar with FND specific rehab, that's okay. This conversation is still a worthwhile starting point. Number two, take an honest look at where accommodation might be happening at home. Not with judgment, absolutely not, just with curiosity. Like, where is your teen's nervous system not getting the chance to practice? Where are you, out of love, stepping in before the brain has a moment to try and make a mistake and get better? Third, your language matters more than you might realize. And this is what I say all the time. Parents, you are the biggest influencer on the planet for your child, whether you like it or not. When your teen says the brace helped today, for example, you can definitely honor that experience and still hold the bigger picture. Let me tell you, something like this. I am really glad you felt supported. And I also believe your nervous system is learning too. You and I, are going to work together towards needing it less with baby steps. That kind of language does two things at the same time. It first of all validates, and it points towards something new.
If you want to see how my full program of Teen FND Academy works and how it's helping families resolve FND for real, then watch the video linked in the description box below.
Now, this is not about taking things away harshly or pushing your child past what they can handle right now. It is all about understanding that the nervous system heals through doing, and that every small step towards less reliance on a device is a step toward a brain that is rewiring and rewriting its own story. If you want support figuring out what this looks like for your teen specifically, like understanding what gradual reduction looks like for their FND picture toward recovery, and learning how to hold that line as a parent with compassion, that is exactly the work we do inside Teen FND Academy. The link is in the description box below, and if this video helped something make sense that didn't before, please share it with another parent who is in the middle of this, or your family members, your friend, teacher, anybody else. They need to hear it too. I will see you in the next video.